Let's now take a look at what's making the headlines on the papers around the world this morning in Nkechi.
And as always, we begin with This Day newspaper. And the biggest print on the front page is the Army Chief to War Commanders. I won't accept any more excuses over attacks. He says officers must take initiative, decisive action to defeat threats, and maintains that failure is failure irrespective of the circumstance. And right on top of that is the Kaba prison break that's in Kogi State. Now security recaptures 99 inmates and over 150 remanded criminals are still at large. Unfortunately, a soldier and policeman was killed during that escape. That can be found on page 10. And also on top of This Day newspaper, the front page, we have OPEC, that's the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, increases 2022 global oil demand forecast by 1 million barrels per day. The cartel's data confirms that Nigeria is unable to meet August production quota.
And the Punch also leads with the news of military onslaught in Zamfara. Riders there dislodge bandits, flee southwards, gunmen striking Kogi, Kaduna, Ekiti. There's a striking, devastating pictures in front on the front page of the Punch this morning. 4 dead, 166 houses destroyed in Abuja estate flood.
And over now to the Guardian newspaper, the leading headline: Nigerians lose 300 billion naira to Ponzi schemes and speculative trade. 2 commit suicide as operators task the federal government on national development. Other minute headlines right there: Southeast residents defy governors and observe sit at home. And 250 inmates escape as gunmen kill 2 soldiers in Kogi State. That's in the Kaba prison. It's on the page 12 of the Metro in The Guardian.
And now moving over to The Guardian UK, the biggest headline here says booster jabs for over 50s as number 10, that's number 10 Downing Street, accelerates vaccine program. Boris Johnson is to confirm the start of booster jabs program for over 50s today after the government finally approved vaccinations for older school children. Another headline here on The Guardian: the Taliban assure UN over safety of the aid staff. Now, this comes as the UN had a conference in Geneva trying to raise money. Well, they raised $1.2 billion for Afghan relief.
And according to the Daily Express this morning, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is confident his winter COVID-19 blueprint will prevent Britain from entering another lockdown. The Daily Express this morning. It's a recurring headline for most of the papers this morning. The Financial Times, reports that the Treasury has killed off the Prime Minister's plan to build a tunnel between Scotland and Northern Ireland. He puts it simply, Johnson's $15 billion, quote, stupid tunnel killed off in Treasury crackdown.
Well, for the press review, Emmanuel Bello joins us now. Emmanuel, we're beginning with This Day as usual. Now, the Army Chief is speaking to war commanders and he says he won't take any more excuses for attacks, and he tells them to take more initiative and decisive action to defeat threats. Now, we've seen a whole lot of insecurity in Nigeria over the past couple of years. Isn't this a little bit too late, Emmanuel?
Well, even if it's too late, it's better late than never. And I think this is the time to talk tough. And if anybody is to do that kind of talking, is the head of the army himself, the army chief. And he's talking to his war commander. That's what you do in a state of war, because we're actually at war right now. Anyone say anything less, he's deceiving himself. He's saying this against the backdrop of just last Saturday in Zamfara. There was another attack, and we're losing, men in uniform at the time of peace. It's elsewhere in the world. This is outrageous. it's no longer tolerable. So, yeah, it's talking tough, but beyond talking tough, of course, there will be other measures. On my way here this morning, I had a personnel, someone in uniform, I wouldn't know whether it's the police or the military, talking about welfare, talking about the fact that there is no motivation, talking about the fact that they need to be, compensated. They need to know that they're safe, that their families are safe back home as they go to the front to combat criminals. So these are beyond talking tough. We must take into focus the crisis of welfare too, for the people that risk their life so that the rest of us can sleep well. So it's good to talk tough. That's what war commanders do, and that's what war chiefs do during a crisis like this. But beyond that, they have to look at every other measures. How are we using technologies to combat this? How are we using intelligence reports? How are we nipping things in the bud? What are we doing? Are these invisible people? What are we doing about weapon infiltrations, whether it's small arms or the heavy weapons that we're hearing about? All sorts of things. Talking tough is good, and the way the headline is coined to say that I won't accept any more excuses, you seem to give the impression that in the past, these excuses were accepted, but it's now very firm. It said, look, failure is failure, and no matter what's the circumstance, failure is always failure. You can garnish it, you can politicize it, you can explain it away, you can't even reason it, because for the ordinary person who is the victim, failure is failure. So the army chief was right, and it's time to really talk tough.
Punch also follows with a story around insecurity as its boldest headline front page this morning. Dislodging onslaught or dislodging bandits in Zamfara, and it says they are heading southwards as gunmen strike in Kogi, Kaduna and Ekiti. It's no longer a problem of the north. It's everyone's problem now, isn't it? Or it has always been, actually. We're just realizing that.
Yes, it's everyone's problem, like who visited the former president the other day, and he said no one is safe. I mean, it's a very grim statement, and say no one is safe. So as no one is safe, almost nowhere is safe. You have a situation where attacks happening in the north are shifting. This is an alarm race, that's with the onslaught, and there's a serious onslaught going on in parts of the north. The fear is that the bandits or the criminals can find their way back to softer targets or to the south as they head there. It's a good thing that the military and even the media were picking on this as early as possible. Early detection, they say, prevents poor performance. So the fact that they are fleeing, that should be expected, because you have a lot of fleeing happening, from the war zone to other areas. And as they flee, you should expect casualties along the way. Apart from them, the other soft targets they meet, the civilian targets. So this is just raising an alarm to say, look, these onslaughts are going on, bandits are fleeing. On one hand, it's good news that there's some fleeing happening, there's some surrendering happening, there's all that. But again, you are talking about the fact that you are moving them from one zone of the battle to a different zone. So it has to be a concerted effort in all the parts, so that they can actually, work as one to deal with a problem that we're all currently faced with.
Now, Emmanuel, you spoke of casualties. There were two of them in the north-central Kogi state, the Kaba prison escape. Over 150 remanded. They've recaptured 99. You spoke of technology, use of technology earlier, and could this have been prevented with that and also the application of intelligence?
Yes, and you had the spokesperson of the prison saying that some of the inmates actually volunteered not to escape. And you begin to wonder, what production is it? Which season of the Prison Break movie are we watching again? This is happening all the time. And someone say preemptive, strikes or preemptive measures. Intelligence is very important. Technologies are good, but intelligence is also very important. You know that, look, there's tendency that prisoners want to escape. You know that they have got their men outside the prisons who are actually in contact with them. You want to also check in beyond the technologies to look at even the men that you call, the officers who are in charge of the prisoner. There are so many movies around these stories, and it's a very common thing that we shouldn't be having, incidences of prison break upon all the crises we have, and that is more criminals. They say they've recaptured some, but it's just going to be yet maybe another. There's going to be a sequel to this. And
thank you so much, Emmanuel Bello. It's always a pleasure to have you review the front pages with us on Daybreak. Thank you so much.